Welcome to Up Close and Personal. I'm Scott Sexsmith. From some of the most creative covers of well-known songs to impressive original material, all of which tends to blow up the internet, Walk Off the Earth does it all. And we're pleased to be joined today on Up Close by Walk Off the Earth's Joel Cassady. Joel, welcome to the show. Great to have you here today.
Hello. Happy to be here. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So you guys kicked off the summer with a bit of a North American tour with a few more stops, including Sault Ste. Marie coming up next month on September 19th. But I'd like to go back in time if we could, Joel. The band formed in 2006 in Burlington, but I guess it was really 2012 when you guys signed with Columbia that things really started to take off for you. Can you kind of walk us through what happened in 2006 up to that signing with Columbia in 2012?
Totally. Yeah. So the sort of WOTE point, V 1.0 was Johnny, who continues to be like our really the operator of the group and the kind of the big ideas guy and kind of like our guiding light with all things WOTE. At that time as well, founding member Ryan Marshall, who has since departed the group, and then founding member Pete Kirkwood, who was the original drummer. So that was those guys doing their thing. As a Burlingtonian myself, I'd always heard of the guys and everything, and I know even early on they were trying to. I had heard rave reviews of their live show, how they were doing interesting stuff, even way back in the day, playing the pub circuit and everything. Doing weird stuff, using drumsticks to play on the guitar and kind of cool little instrument swaps and stuff. Even back then, I'd always heard about that sort of stuff as I was coming up, doing my thing, and going to high school in Burlington and all that, and the whole deal. When my kind of life led me to music school and to Humber College, and then I got a chance to actually go on tour and leave Humber, which was a huge moment for me to actually get a chance to go from studying it to doing it for real. When I came back from that tour, my phone started to ring quite a bit more in the GTA with gigs and this sort of stuff. And one of those phone calls was from WOTE after Pete had ultimately decided to depart the group and focus on funny enough, his father's alcohol distillation business. So that was something that was a really kind of big gig for him. That's of course, I mean, really, it's 9 times out of 10, I feel, especially when at that time the band really sort of at the kind of local bar circuit, it's a no-brainer to step into an opportunity like that. So that was that. The group was looking for a new drummer, and even at that time, just getting going with this is getting us closer to kind of 2010, 2011, 2012 now. Even at that time, this is like, early YouTube days when Justin Bieber from down the road had just been able to leverage YouTube and been one of the first artists to really kind of create a career in this new way that didn't necessarily involve having to go the conventional route. So that was a big thing for us. And for G, I think that was a moment of like, okay, let's start to really do this YouTube thing. And back then, when him and I first started chatting, I think the YouTube channel had 3,000 subscribers, and even off that number, we had an opportunity or the band did before I joined, to go on tour in the UK. Something called the Digi Tour, the YouTube Digi Tour. This is early days of YouTube, but clearly still something really exciting happening here. So that was the kind of main reason why I was reached out to join the group. Little did we all know that continuing to do these kind of YouTube videos, and about a year later, we'd all be in Johnny's kitchen shooting this video with the 5 of us on one guitar, and then every day from then this would be a full-time thing for us. But that's what kind of got me in. And at the time, I know Mike Taylor had been just recently brought into the band officially as well, and Sarah Blackwood at the time was still just kind of a regular collaborator of WOTE and of Johnny's. He was actually producing Sarah's solo record at the time, when it just kind of felt like the right move to bring her in for the Gautier video, and certainly the rest is history with that. We literally woke up the next day, and I'll never forget, I had just recently gotten into the website Reddit at that time, and being kind of like, Reddit has always called itself the front page of the internet. A lot of people don't realize that Reddit gets like, I think, top 5 traffic for all North American internet websites. So it's always been kind of a go-to for that, for breaking news and stuff. But to wake up the next morning and open up Reddit and see our video on the top of Reddit was something really special, and that was kind of the start of a crazy thing for us. So it's been a wild ride, man. But that was kind of the beginnings of it for me, anyway.
Yeah, and that cover, of Gautier, somebody that I used to know, obviously was what shot you guys to international stardom. And you mentioned the 5 of you playing one guitar in Johnny's kitchen. I got to ask, who thinks up that kind of stuff?
So it's funny at the time. I know G had been sending me some videos of like basically almost like a Rube Goldberg-esque approach to making music, right? And the importance of YouTube being a visual medium first and foremost, right? And this really echoes back to what I had just mentioned too, about like even in the early days, we'll put such an emphasis on like the show and the excitement and the entertainment of it all. You know, G has mentioned so many times over the years about there's those bands that will basically just kind of pull up on stage, hang out, stand there and play the songs, and no shade to them at all, right? Like great song's a great song. As an audience member, as a fan of any group, you can enjoy kind of whatever you like. But for G and certainly for us over the years, the importance of the visual aspect, especially kind of setting up shop on YouTube, was ever more and more valuable. So I know he had sent us a few videos. For example, there was at the time there was also a group called the Piano Guys that was getting big, where they were doing like on a piano and kind of repurposing parts of the piano in ways that you wouldn't expect. Like, you're using various parts of it for percussive elements and this sort of stuff. One of those videos was, I think it was 2 or 3 people on an acoustic guitar really getting in each other's way and trying to kind of make a thing of it. And we decided to take that essentially and say, how can we make this, how can we level this up to a ridiculous way and just kind of like figure it out? So we didn't even have a clear vision for the video beyond that. We just wanted as many bodies on this thing as possible. So we just got into Johnny's place. The funny story, of course, is that Mike Taylor was never actually supposed to, Beard Guy was never supposed to be in the video, but he just happened to wander through in like hour 10 or 12 of us trying to figure this thing out. He just decided to pop by and say hi, have a drink, and we ended up throwing him in last minute. And of course, that was probably the single biggest viral moment of the whole thing. Who knows where we'd be right now if that didn't end up happening. So
yeah,
we always love this sort of happenstance nature of stuff. But yeah, basically just the general idea of let's throw a bunch of people on a guitar, let's get in and figure it out. Our shoots used to be these punishing shoots where we would do just that. We'd have a loose creative, we'd get in the room, and 12 hours later, we would hopefully have something. We've gotten a lot better at streamlining that process over the years, but those are the good old days of us just kind of like having a rough idea, getting in the room and going from there.
Now, at last check, I believe it was just yesterday, I had a look. That video is well over 190 million views on YouTube. and collectively, your views are over 1 billion. Do you find that number staggering sometimes when you stand back and think about just how big you guys are online?
Always, man. Every time we hear from someone or we get like we see that, I mean, even just most recently, Lewis Hamilton, the big F1 driver, when we see stuff like that and we see those sort of people at that level with that sort of reach, sharing our videos, commenting on our videos, saying someone sent that to them, anything like that, anything that involving someone at I feel like we very much are still this kind of like group of buddies that are just, they could be living down the street from you kind of thing, right? So when someone like that, who's like certainly to us objectively is like this kind of like big star or whatever it is, when we have moments like that, which crazy enough happen on a pretty regular basis for us, it will never get the pinch yourself moment will never go away, I think. And I certainly hope it doesn't, because that's something that really continues to keep us. How could we not be continually wildly motivated decades on doing this when we're still getting that sort of love and admiration, right? It's the coolest thing in the world. So I think, yeah, every time we see that, every time we have a new video or a new release, whether it's a cover or an original or anything like that, do the huge numbers and everything like that, it's just like a holy crap moment. Like there's a certain magic that clearly is still here. Do we understand it fully? No. We feel like we just kind of still get in and do our thing and make what feels best to us. But clearly that's found a significant audience over the years and found a way to resonate with a lot of people. And that is a truly privileged position to be in, because we know one of the biggest values, in my opinion, of getting a chance to go out and make a living off of this and meet incredible artists all around the world and go on tour and stuff, is you see how much talent is out there. And for some reason, there's all this talent out there. There's people more talented and more deserving than us out there. But for some reason, we continue to have this opportunity. So we better make sure we make the most of that and continue grinding, especially in this era of increasingly more and more artists having a chance to, at an easier level, put something up online these days on TikTok and that sort of stuff. But years ago, and of course still on YouTube and the like, that's the playing field has been so greatly evened out. And if that isn't a humbling thing, and if that isn't something that keeps the fire lit under us, I don't know what is, because that's the way we see it. This is the attention economy and the algorithm economy. If we're not always trying to find a way to kind of work that algorithm or kind of get someone's attention more than the next person, that person's going to come by and take our spot. So it's kind of like this ever more and more motivating thing that fortunately for us has provided more and more opportunities for us the whole way along.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of it as well, Joel, is it with you guys. It doesn't stop with five people on a guitar. You get very creative when it comes to instruments and finding the most unique things to make sounds that enhance the music that you guys play. In fact, Derek and I, our producer, were watching some of your videos the other day, and just mind blown that it's like how are they making music and sounds out of that? What's
Yeah.
that whole creative process like?
Honestly, it's a lot of us just being like studio geeks. Like we have the benefit of it's funny because like a lot of the videos do very much have, and people tell us this, have this kind of feel of like as if it's almost like a fly on the wall and we're just kind of doing our thing, like jamming or whatever. But the reality is that there's a whole method to the madness there, and 9 times out of 10, that's us just messing around, recording sounds, trying to make weird sounds that we may have never heard before, or stumbling upon things in a pretty organic way. Like for example, we had a video years back where it was a cover of a Bruno Mars song called Natalie, and we just so happened we were on the road, and Sarah had this electric toothbrush that vibrated at a very clear kind of tonal frequency to the point where we heard it, we sampled it, and that ended up being like this whole intro to the tune kind of thing, right? So I think literally just having fun and trying to not much as artists. I think it's so many artists default to overthinking stuff, and you get in your head and you're like, it's not perfect enough, it's not right enough. We've really done our best to try and embrace this kind of spur of the moment sort of excitement and like the value of something as it's being discovered, and trying to capture that initial point of relatability to it and say, hey, here's something. More recently, in a recent original single called Back in Bed, the squeak of a window at our studio, one of our studio assistants was cleaning a window, and the squeak of the window had a certain pitch to it as well. That's the kind of stuff that I feel like we continue to default to, and it certainly keeps things exciting for us. And that's kind of us just discovering that on our own is one thing. To get to a certain level with that, and to kind of build a platform of that, and then to start getting hit up by companies that are making great instruments and say, hey, we're going to send you a bunch of stuff. If you guys happen to make something crazy with it, then that's just a bonus for us.
Right.
So to kind of have that side become more and more of a thing over the years, as we continue to still just try and like find stuff around the house, has been a cool one too as well, because what a great position to be in. I mean, even to be hit up by Blueberry Guitars is a company based out of Montreal, but they get all their guitars created in Bali, in Indonesia. They hit us up a couple of years back saying, hey, we make pretty wild guitars. Check out a few pictures. Let us know if you guys want to do up like a rough schematic. We'd love to make a guitar for you. And
cool.
We made sure to say, just so you know who you're dealing with here, like, we're probably going to send you something pretty insane. They said, go for it. Send us whatever you like. And we dreamt up what has now become this kind of larger than life thing of ours called the Gee Harp Ukulele. That's made it into a bunch of videos. We currently have this kind of wild medley that we've been performing out. That's kind of a mix of a guitar, a bass harp up top, and a ukulele down bottom with a bunch of weird percussive elements on it. And that for us was a nice moment of being able to kind of take that spirit, that ethos of us just kind of discovering weird sounds with household items over the years, and actually plug a lot of that into a more functional, legitimate instrument kind of thing. So
right.
Really just a really cool opportunity on both sides, to be always in this kind of place of discovery and trying to find music where music may not exist otherwise, but also to be like more in touch than ever with some of these brands that are doing really cool things. And Boomwhackers, for example, who would have ever thought that this like kind of like legendary child instrument company would be so in regular touch with us and always sending us their latest kind of gadgets and gizmos to come up with something crazy for a new video, right? That's happening all the time now, and it's a very very cool position to be in.
Joel, you talk about social media, and you guys not only embrace social, but it's such an integral part of the fabric of virtually everything you guys do, and it's almost like you've kind of set the standard. I mean, you referenced Bieber earlier on in the interview, but to me, it seems you guys have taken it that much further, and it's so important in everything that WOTE does.
Absolutely. I think it's there's never been a better time. And this is like talking of 10 years ago when every record label in North America wanted us, and they gave us the full wine and dine treatment, the whole everything I'd ever heard about the slimy side of the record business and stuff. That was right in front of our faces when that video was taking off. And I will never forget the significance of the moment of being in L.A. Reid's office on 550 Madison Avenue, up in the Sony building, and having the ball in our court. Like that's a scenario, whoever it is, the suit number, whatever it is, right? Big record label exec suit. The more classic scenario at that time was young group of excited people shows up. Oh man, they just got a call that they might be able to sign a big record deal. They're so excited. They're so overwhelmed by the experience that they're basically just down to sign whatever gets put in front of them. And the business side of this space has always known that. They've always known that the convergence of smart business mind and passionate artist is an interesting one. Is a bit of a battlefield in the sense that if I'm a really, really smart business mind, I know that these bleeding heart artists who are just so passionate, they just want to get their stuff out there more and more. The fine details of an agreement like that are going to be lost on or at least that's the way that it was, you know, and that's been something that's really changed a lot. So to be in some of these record label offices, sitting there with an audience that we already have grown organically ourselves, in a scenario that typically leading up to that would have been like, hey, you guys are really promising. You don't have anything going on yet. Sign here, here, and here. Sign this super predatory 360 deal, and it's off to the races. We were able to say no to a lot of things and kind of cherry pick some deal points that we liked because we had a bit more of that sort of hindsight and you know, at the time when that happened, I think I would have been 21, 22 years old. I was the baby of the band at that time. And another fortunate thing was my bandmates at that time had all had a little more experience than myself dealing with labels on various levels and dealing with that sort of predatory overreach that was happening more often than not. So I think to be in a position, even 10 years ago at that point, where we could say no, and you could see it in the reaction of hers and of the Sonys and these sort of big establishments, like, oh shit, we may not actually have all the keys and we hold all the power anymore, right? That's them coming to this realization. So for 10 years ago to that be the case, and for opportunities to have increased tenfold, more than that, every year via other socials by then, you know, some of them have come and gone, the Vines of the world, this sort of stuff, right? These days with TikTok and all that sort of stuff, there's never been a greater time to be an independent artist and to actually build an organic following around that doesn't necessarily have to be beholden to a big gatekeeper or a big filter that's going to make it that much harder for you to make the stuff that you make best and for your audience to appreciate that and really be a part of that process the whole way along. So of course, that's something where I guess as almost having OG status in the independent creator realm in this sense, these days, because we've been fortunate enough to have a decade-long career at this level, we're always trying to like help lift up independent creators that haven't had their shot just yet, right? That haven't had their chance to really go yet, that might even come to us with questions because they've started to get hit up by some different label reps or whatever. And we're always those people now saying, hey, here's what we've learned, here's what we've been through, so you hopefully don't have to, you know, make sure to hold on to that independent spirit as long as you can, because once again, there's never been a better time and more opportunity to actually find success in that way without having to compromise your art or compromise what actually got you there in the first place.
So I guess you could say, Joel, in that meeting with Sony, you were the baby face in the room, not L.A. Reid. See, you get that joke. Many others won't.
Yep.
All right, good.
Yes, sir.
At least one person got it. Let's talk about the music, specifically the stuff that you guys cover. And frankly, it's mind-blowing. And I think in many instances, Joel, way better than the originals. Ed Sheeran, Tina Turner, Bruce Springsteen. It's so wide-ranging. How do you guys decide what is going to make a great cover?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, certainly our versions wouldn't exist without the originals. So all props to the original artists and writers, of course. But we do get those sort of comments. And what a cool thing as well. What a privileged position to be in as well, to hear from like some metalhead that, you know, that never liked that Taylor Swift song that says, for some reason, I connected with that tune. Again, in the spirit of trying to not overthink it, I think we just like, when we're all chatting, and this has kind of always been the workflow, we'll send each other the Spotify link or the YouTube link to a tune and say, hey, I can't get this out of my head. I feel like there could be something here for a WOTE treatment, right? I think it's got to be an earworm for us first and foremost, for us to have the kind of motivation to want to turn it into. Again, it's a longer process than not for us to kind of actually generate a WOTE cover version, but especially a full-on WOTE video treatment and everything. It's not a quick process. So we need to have that motivation in the form of us having the song in our heads. And actually, it's become a fun thing over the years. The best way for us to get that earworm out of our heads is to put it through the sort of WOTE assembly line, because we know by the time we're done with that, we will have listened to it so many thousands of times that we're like, okay, we're finally done with it. It's out in the world. Let's move on to the next thing, because we've kind of like gone so deep on this tune and made sure that our iteration of it is so true to us that there's no choice. But we're almost sick of the tune by then, right? But yeah, I think first and foremost, it's got to be a great song. It's got to be something that we love and connect with, and there's got to be an opportunity for us ideally in as organic a way as possible to say we can WOTify that kind of thing. There's been tunes before that have been great that people have suggested them, but we haven't been able to find the right kind of WOTE treatment approach. And if that's the case, we don't do it, because we know that there's the whole disingenuous side of things that's gonna read, and that's just not gonna feel best to us, and it's not gonna feel best to an audience. So we've had to make some of those tough calls over the years, but 9 times out of 10, when we get that sort of vibe and we bounce it off one another and we say, okay, let's go for it, 9 times out of 10 it ends up turning into something pretty special that's I guess will live on forever and be able to like, we see the numbers, we see the data, continues to find new audiences, continues to find new fans. That's the real beauty of kind of being a digitally native artist these days, is that like the stuff is just out there and will probably be out there forever, and we're continually finding new audience and finding new excitement and new places to travel around the world, new brands to work with, new opportunities all the time, thanks to this kind of wild world of being a digitally native artist in 2022, or even all the way back to 2012 when we first took off. Like it's there were great opportunities then. There've been great opportunities the whole way along, and there's more than ever right now.
Yeah, first of all, I love the term WOTE treatment and WOTify. Love that. I think my favorite was your version of Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. That was pretty cool. But it's not just the cover stuff that's grabbing people's attention. The original work by the band has been incredibly impressive. A number of songs achieving multi-platinum certification, and of course several hits on radio in both Canada and the U.S.
Yeah, and that's the real. I mean, there are lots of artists that have a chance to have a viral video or something like this, and for whatever combination of reasons, they maybe don't get a chance to turn that into kind of a full-fledged career kind of thing, right? So of course, much as we were so excited when that first video took off and the world stage had become available to us, the first thing in our heads was, how do we turn this into a win and create longevity here, especially when it comes to our original recordings, which we were very proud of as well. So to have a chance and to sign a deal with Columbia, much as it was a good deal for us at the time and the best of the sort of major label opportunities, it was great to have them help us put emphasis on our originals. And that was something that, much as that relationship was kind of done after a couple of years, and realistically the major label thing is like, it's a business at the highest level with that stuff. When you're a hot new artist and you get signed, yes, of course they're going to put their time and their resources into you on a first album cycle. If that first album cycle doesn't get you to the level that some of our then label mates were, Adele, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, John Mayer, then you really start to feel that kind of like deprioritization. And once again, that'd be a much bigger issue if they held the keys to our entire audience base and our ability to kind of really have a presence. But because we had those keys, it was much different kind of thing, right? So I think many benefits to those early days and that early deal and everything, but especially having a chance to really get Red Hands, for example, our first big original single, worked down in the US and really help us create a stronghold down in the US, and of course at home in Canada and in other territories around the world, like Europe, for example, specifically Germany, GSA, the territory, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, is a massive consumption market out there. And that was another market we were able to go out and really work really hard out the gates because of our connections with the Columbia deal. So it's actually pretty reasonable to consider that without some of those tools in place initially, maybe our original music wouldn't have had the chance to create the stronghold that it has had. So certainly a lot of benefits from that relationship. Again, much as it wasn't the long-term thing for us. We've kind of more and more over these years just kind of defaulted to retaining our own rights and producing everything in-house and wanting to own as much of our own masters and our material as possible. It's all been great for learning, and fortunately there haven't been any kind of real, you hear the stories of like, I forget the guy who won American Idol the one year, and like I think he was from Tennessee, and 6 months later he was back home in Nashville doing the bar circuit because what under the impression would be the kind of like, I finally made it now, was the polar opposite of what artistic fulfillment would have ever been to him. They wanted to change his look, they wanted to change his sound, all that classic
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
That's a problem, right? So I think never being in a position where that was put in front of us, or kind of we were threatened by, is a real blessing as well. And it makes sense because we, especially this era of independent creators, it's all about authenticity, right? Authenticity is the currency in a certain sense, right? So I think having that acknowledged, even at the top level, even at the level where a lot of these people, a lot of the big suits at the major label level, their success very much comes not from that. It comes from the kind of classic radio marketing thing, and just sort of classic, like, let's take this band and let's turn this group or this artist into what we know is already working. So to their credit, it's a risk on their side as well to say, hey, let's let this new group that already has this following, let's let them do their thing to a point and just kind of interject as needed. That's yet another benefit, I think, to this crazy journey we've been on and continue to be on, that they let us kind of keep our creativity, keep what got us there at the fore. And I think it's what continues to keep us going.
Joel Cassady is our guest from Walk Off the Earth. Joel, talking about original music, one of my favorites, a single that you guys recently released called Bet On Me. It's a great track, but seems to have a bit of a different sound than what we're used to with Walk Off the Earth music. This one has kind of an R&B sound to it, but man, I'm digging it. It sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, hey, we like to try and we've kind of become known more and more over the years for being this kind of like ultra eclectic group. So we certainly I feel like every time there's a comment about like, maybe this isn't your guys' go-to thing, I'm like, okay, we got to do more of that then, because we like, we've done Iron Maiden covers, and we've had people tell us that like we never thought you guys would do that. So certainly nothing's off limits for us, but you're totally right as far as for our originals, especially the hip hop thing or the R&B leading thing was never as much of a focus for us. Getting that initial lick together, that was also one of our first tunes that we really were the entire progress of the song we put out there for all to see and enjoy and get involved with on social media, right? So we came up with this first little lick on a piano, and we just said, you know what? We saw that was when Charlie Puth had recently had a huge amount of success. Obviously, he's at that kind of top tier level, but he had a song called Light Switch where via TikTok he was able to kind of pull back the curtain on the whole creative process and make this thing a guaranteed smash before it even was released, because he got this thing in people's heads months before it even came out, to the point where when it finally was released, everybody jumped on it, kind of thing, right? So we said, hey, let's give that a go. Let's take this first lick that we came up with, let's put it out there, let's create a beat around it, and let's kind of engage the audience and say, hey, artists out there, we want to hear from you. We want to hear you put your artistic spin on this instrumental we're working on, and let us know, kind of, hit us with your best thing, and then we'll let the community decide who gets to, because it's all public, it's all, anyone can access who's done a create or a remix with that piece of audio. So things just started happening. One thing led to another, and like a Grammy nominated artist by the name of D Smoke, who actually was the winner of a Netflix show called Rhythm and Flow, really cool show. He was sent it. I don't know. We still don't really know for sure how it worked. Like someone in our team managed to get it to his team. He loved it. He did a thing. He wrote a verse in a couple minutes. He put it up there. We freaked out. Our audience freaked out. Even everybody else who had submitted something great freaked out. And I think it was a week later, he sent us final vocals, and we do everything in-house in our studio in Burlington. So we cooked those into the version and we put it out, and the rest is history, kind of thing. Like, what a cool way to collaborate these days and discover artists that you may not even know about prior, just based on kind of like turning things over to your audience and putting things out on social and saying, hey, whoever's out there that wants to collab, hit us with your best shot. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, and I think you guys called that the Open Verse Challenge. Can we expect to see more of that kind of social community involvement?
Certainly. The funny thing is we have these weekly calls where our team, who's Los Angeles based, they get a lot of the hard numbers, the data on. We're all trying to speculate. We're all slave to this algorithm that no one really knows exactly how it works, right? So we're always getting these little bits of info and updates and details, and we're always trying to kind of like slightly adjust our content in a way that's still very brand aligned to what we've built over the years, but in a way that we think and we know based on these contacts we have will allow us to maybe hit the algorithm a certain way. So, for example, shortly after that whole campaign, the sort of poll the audience, or the sort of open verse challenge thing almost became too saturated. You saw everybody doing that, right? So right now, for example, things have kind of trended a little bit away from that. But the general spirit and approach that is, hey, we want to put something that's a work in progress out to our audience for their feedback, for their potential collaboration, that will never go away. And I think if anything, we'll just be finding new and more exciting ways to kind of achieve that, whether it's called an open verse challenge, whether it goes out on TikTok first and foremost. That's obviously a huge part of our whole thing. So of course.
Joel, just changing gears here, if we can, for a minute. Back in 2018, sadly, the band lost Mike Taylor at the age of 51. Obviously, a very difficult time. How did the loss of Beard Guy affect the band, and how did it change Sarah's, Gianni's, and your perspective on everyday things?
Man, so much. I actually I lost my mom about a week after that, so that was definitely what the bottom felt like. You know what I mean? And it's much as that's a huge shock, and I mean, with my mom, it was a bit of a lesser shock than with Mike, because she had brain cancer, and it was sort of, we knew what was happening there, right? But to certainly feel that bottom, and this echoes, I think, back to a lot of what we were talking about before we started recording here, about just the value of the pandemic and the life lessons learned and the grand realizations had over the course of the past few years. Very much that was the case coming off of that, to be blindsided by Mike, and then just shortly after that with in my experience with my mom, you really start to put less of your energy into the things that you used to maybe stress about or ruminate on or overthink or be concerned about things that are out of your control. You know, there's certainly been a major boost in just kind of defaulting to, especially, and this could go into a whole other thing on the topic of mental health, which I know is fortunately a growing public discussion these days. But for those of us, myself included, who've spent a lot of time dealing with the likes of anxiety and depression and overthinking things and worrying about things that are out of one's control, a major silver lining, certainly in going through such great loss, whether unexpected or expected, is that you really, certainly I found this kind of chilling out of, like, I call it the bullshit threshold, the where the threshold is of wanting to kind of deal with other people's criticisms or thoughts or opinions or this sort of stuff. That was significantly upped in my experience, where, you know, what used to kind of set me off or upset me, and this rings true for Gia and Sarah as well. I think all of us, with the legacy we're leaving and where we're headed and the decisions that we're making on a day-to-day level, like what's the real impact of those, and are we prioritizing our wellness, our happiness, our fulfillment along the way, or are we in a position where someone else's, a team member, a business person, whatever, maybe their priorities have become our priorities? And to be able to reapproach that and think, you know, what's going to make us happy and fulfilled first and foremost, and allow us to spend our time in exactly the way that we want to spend it. That was probably the single biggest silver lining moment coming off of that, and moving forward. And, you know, for our ex-bandmate Ryan Marshall, I think for him, his point of relatability to all that was, you know what, that was a really tough thing for us all to go through together. You know, maybe the best move, you know, certainly for him going through that was to take a step back and pursue, you know, some of his artistic goals that maybe didn't lie directly within WOTE, kind of thing, right? For us, for myself, G and Sarah, it was about just kind of strengthening what we'd spent those years building and carrying forward accordingly. But I think certainly that silver lining thing is very real when it comes to, no one should have to deal with that. No one wants to deal with that. But if you're going to be dealt that hand, I think to take a big step back and think long and hard about what we're doing, where we're headed, how fulfilled we are, why we're doing this, all those sort of big questions shoot right to the forefront. I think it's easy when you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you're in a band that's busy, that's doing awesome stuff all the time. You're always just kind of looking forward. And I think to have a moment where you just have to press pause and really think about everything is, I think, one of the most important developments that we've had. Of course, coming off of those moments of loss, but again, getting into the pandemic era, I think that was really, we were set up for success in that sense, because we'd already been through some of these shocking moments of really thinking about how we spend our time, and do we want to be away from our families for months at a time? Do we want to do these sorts of things that maybe other artists that have other opportunities that are in other points of their career are happy to do? for us, it was like, okay, we're going to make this X, Y, and Z pivot or adjustment because we know that that's going to be most fulfilling to us. And we know that that is, in doing so, is going to translate to us making the best possible art that we can make and continue to inspire people and really touch people in the ways that we've been able to over these years, hopefully in a way that's kind of greater than ever. And of course, getting into songs like Mike's song that we wrote obviously as a direct result of that loss, that hurt. And of course, I was writing from a place very much from also losing my mom through that process, to be able to cathartically like write that out and be in a position where as artists we can do that. We can be the most heartbroken, the most gut wrenched out there, and be able to, okay, say, hey, you know what, let's make a song about that, which first and foremost helps us through it, helps our hearts heal through that. But then to put it out into the world and to start hearing from people that we've never met, who don't even speak the same language as us, hey, that really helped me get through the loss of my close person as well, or something a really tough life development as well. That's just the icing on the cake, to be able to write that out and be able to find our new kind of strength through that. But then to hear from all these people around the world that helped them as well. I mean, there's no greater feeling and there's no greater opportunity for us. Like, what a privileged position to be in. So I think this is what we default to these days. Yes, hard stuff happens, difficult stuff happens, but we refuse to see anything but the positivity in it, because it's why would we do otherwise? I feel like any other way is torturous, right? And you got to go through that to get to a certain point of positivity. But I can say with total confidence that at this point, the positivity in that sense has never been more at the forefront, and I think we're happier and more fulfilled because of it, and I think that's showing in our music as well.
Yeah, very cool and very well said. Okay, you guys are a pretty big deal in the music business, but I know that you've also worked with some pretty big deals in the likes of Snoop Dogg, Keith Urban, Sarah Silverman. Any favorites or cool stories that you can share with us from those experiences?
Yeah, Snoop Dogg is obviously that's an all-timer for sure. Having a chance to it's funny, they only did it 1 year, but we were lucky enough to be a part of it. The YouTube Music Awards was actually what brought us together with Snoop. At the time, he was doing his Snoop Lion kind of more reggae leaning thing, and we had a chance to collaborate with him and do that performance, but also in the process of actually becoming buddies with him and be able to we have a video of us covering one of his songs from that era, in the studio with him, working with him, and moments like that where we've had a chance to really that's a perfect example of something that I feel like none of us would have ever thought in our wildest dreams we'd have a chance to do that. And fast forward to us actually having a chance to do it, and and crossing paths with the likes of, I don't know, Seal at the Ottawa Blues Fest, and being out in Bulgaria and getting a chance to chat with and hang with Cypress Hill and Erykah Badu and these sort of people. And I'm totally butchering, by the way, the amount of big names and big opportunities we've had that at this point I'd have to really sit down with G and Sarah to really put them all on paper, because there's been so many. But early days, to be hit up by Russell Crowe, who's a musician, to say he loved us and would love to collaborate, to have to say no to the likes of Russell Crowe and Coldplay, who reached out to us for a cover version when things were first blowing up, because we had so much on the go. This sort of stuff, it just continues to be surreal. And to now be in a position where, working on a fully greenlit, fully funded animated series, and be in a position where we can start to actually bring some of these people in to guest on our show and to be a part of the original song that we're writing for every episode. What a wild opportunity, right? So I think it's that stuff continues to be a thing for us, and it continues to blow our minds. And as I mentioned earlier as well, it continues to be something that we don't take for granted, because just because it's been the case for a decade doesn't mean that it could all end tomorrow, and some new hotshot group could come by and completely steal our attention span or our audience tomorrow. So something that we continue to not take for granted. Working with the likes of Steve Aoki on the more electronic music side, right, and people who have huge audiences and huge reach that way, it's just such a special thing. And of course, each one of these collaborations affords us the opportunity to reach a new fan base and a new demographic. So I mean, to be in a position now where we're less going after those and actually being able to just kind of field those opportunities is something truly wild. But we also have a phenomenal team, and they're also always going out and trying to get our stuff in the hands of new people. And even more recently as well, like getting to collaborate with Lucas Graham, who's a phenomenal talent out of Europe. Drawing a huge blank right now, the guy that we did Hold On to Your Love with, Philip Phillips down in the US, right? These are people who have huge, fantastic careers that didn't necessarily come from the web-born space, who we've now been able to kind of converge with and create new art with. And that's such a cool thing as well. And that'll certainly be a cornerstone of the sort of WOTE brand forever. And once again, I feel like we have more opportunity there, and have been able to put more emphasis on that sort of stuff these days than ever before, thanks to things kind of continuing to grow and evolve for us.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the animated series that I think you've got 14 or so episodes done.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? When can we see it? Fill us in.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have this awesome guy in our mix. His name is Ross Van Oker. He's like a 30-year Hollywood writer and director of animation. The first project when he was like 18 years old, he ever sold when he got to Hollywood was to Steven Spielberg, for example. Like he's the guy. He's the guy. He has no business dealing with us, but he, for some reason, years back, just decided to out of nowhere pitch us on this show idea where essentially the show would be called Walk Off the Earth in Space, and we're a band that gets essentially abducted up into space, and really it's infinite writing potential, because every episode we can almost crash land on a new planet that can be completely made up with the most ambitious and ridiculous and creative kind of context with no rules. We find ourselves on a planet, and through some kind of series of hijinks, we save the day, and every episode ends with or in somewhere in the episode has an original song by us. Just this kind of fun process. So for Ross to hit us up 5-6 years ago and say, guys, I got this idea, we were like, okay, cool. We'd had certain similar offers or similar kind of things put across the table. We're like, yeah, we want to do this animated series. That was one thing. I feel like we were kind of like, okay, man, yeah, best of luck, keep us posted. Fast forward to the pandemic, and Ross hits us and says, guys, we just got fully funded for the whole thing. We're good to do 14 episodes. Never in my career have I been fully funded for the first season of something without the financier even seeing a pilot episode. But here we are. So wow. We were fully greenlit. We just delivered our part of the voiceover and of the music for the 14th episode. And the move now is that it's fully independently financed. Our guy Deepak, who's the financier, has been doing this for quite a while, and essentially he's so well connected to the likes of Netflix and Disney and the whole thing that's not even a concern for him. He'll put up the money based on the level of quality that he believes that the people he's investing in can generate. And he's actually been really involved in the whole process, which is very cool. Some people will just kind of put the money up and say, call me when it's done. He's been very critical and very hands-on, which has been awesome. Essentially, where it's going to go is once we have the kind of full first season to stand back at and we're all happy with, look at a glance, he's then going to basically, our understanding is he's going to give a call to his buddy at Netflix, his buddy at Disney Plus, his buddy at Amazon, and find the kind of best deal from there to place the show. So it's likely that there's been some kind of bottlenecks throughout the year, as I feel like there always is, but especially even with some of this supply chain type stuff coming off the pandemic has actually been even echoed to the animation industry. So there's been a few things that have set us back a little bit this year. So I think more likely at this point next year will be the year that will wind up on major streaming and allow us once again to tap into and discover a whole new demographic. And it's the what's known as the 4-quadrant realm we've learned through Ross. Mothers, fathers, families, children is the kind of classic entertainment demographic, family friendly sort of thing. That's the realm that we've largely been operating in, whether we realize it or not over these years. And Ross has had the bulk of his successes in that realm as well. So to have a chance to potentially really crack that family entertainment demographic in a way that first and foremost isn't even rooted in music. Yes, it involves our tunes. That's all great. But first and foremost, it's an animated series that is spoken by us and some of our close friends. What a cool thing, man. What another just completely mind-blowing thing that me as a 12-year-old kid that just wanted to be Travis Barker from Blink-182 and be a rock star drummer. I never thought I would have had an opportunity like that, but here we are.
Well, and you get those streaming services involved, then you can just sit back and cash checks and enjoy the ride, right?
Hey, man.
Nothing wrong with
That'd
that.
Be great.
There's nothing wrong with that. Joel, I know the summer tour is winding down. You got a couple of stops left, September 19th, I believe, in Sault Ste. Marie, and then later on in Buffalo, New York. Then what can we look forward to from Walk Off the Earth? What's on the agenda?
More. Always. Yeah, we're so excited to come out to the Sioux. It's been way too long. Going down to Buffalo will be great. It's just been nice over the whole summer to get out and play some of these big festivals. We did almost 100,000 people out in Quebec as part of FEQ this year, which was an incredible experience. Having a chance to do Carnegie Hall out in New York City was a total bucket list moment, as was finally getting a chance to do our twice postponed Budweiser stage gig at a hometown in Toronto. Certainly, yes. Once we kind of wrap up these last few shows, just more great content, or as great as we can make it. It's this kind of steady slew of like originals. We have a new original dropping tomorrow called Happy Stuff, which we're really proud of. New original tunes, new cover videos, new multimedia projects, the likes of which we may not even know about yet, but certainly the likes of WOTE in Space and everything like that. We're fortunate to always be kind of like in the midst of, I swear, like 10 plus projects, you know. And another big thing that we do a lot of is these kind of cool brand deals where maybe for another band, you know, a company, for example, Aerial Pods, we just did a second campaign with them. They're the UK and European version of Tide Pods here. Same parent company, same Procter and Gamble up top, but they like to, for some reason, market research, who knows what, have different names for these products sort of around the world. So we just did another one with them. And whereas, you know, maybe another band would just get hit up to do a brand deal and say, hey, show up on this day and we're going to tell you what to do. You know, you guys are the actors and that's it. When brands come to us, we make sure that if we're going to work with them, they hire us full service for production as well, because we become so known over the years for the style that we impart in our videos, whether it's small production, big production, and the kind of like sort of whole process coming from our heads. We don't know any other way at this point. So every time one of those comes across the table for us, we say, hey, we're down to do this, but we need the keys on the production side as well. And 9 times out of 10, there's no pushback there, because I think these brands realize the value of letting something come to life that is very unmistakably us, right? So that's something that fortunately keeps us very busy as well, working on these kind of cool brand opportunities that allow us to kind of like put together the song for it and be the ones with the final say on the production and direction end as well. That's yet another just wonderful thing that has found its way into our life and careers as a result of being this kind of internet band. So more of all that. Like, I feel like right now we're releasing an original tune like every 6 to 8 weeks. The video thing, funny enough, the cover videos has been something that we've been prioritizing less, just for the process of getting back on the road and being busy with WOTE in Space and some of these brand opportunities. But that's yet another thing that's going to be a central focus for us getting into the fall and the winter, and just more and more and more. We don't know how to slow down. We don't know how to stop. We're sort of addicted to this at this point, and fortunately, it's a relatively healthy addiction that is enabled by a whole lot of folks around the world. So we're going to keep going, man. Why wouldn't we?
Well, I can tell you, Joel, that as a fan, we don't want you to slow down, and we don't want you to stop. Listen, looking forward to seeing you when you're up here in Sault Ste. Marie in a couple of weeks. It'll be great to meet you in person. Good luck with the rest of the tour, the animated series, and everything else that Walk Off the Earth does. And we certainly appreciate you doing this today, Joel.
Scott, thank you so much. We will make sure to play Eye of the Tiger just for you out in the Sioux. We actually just heard from the guy. This is the there's no greater compliment than to hear from the original writers of a song like that. And they actually, I forget if there was 2 guys who wrote it. The one guy who wrote it said, this is my favorite version of Eye of the Tiger I've ever seen, which was like, come on. That's a true pinch yourself type moment. So we'll make sure to put that into the set list just for you for the Sioux. And thank you so much for the time, man.
Joel Cassady from Walk Off the Earth. Thanks for watching another episode of Up Close and Personal. You can find all episodes at upclosepodcast.ca, across the Village Media Network, and wherever you get your favorite podcast. For Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith.
Scott Sexsmith's wardrobe provided by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.